It's time for Blue and White Breakdown on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Sponsored by Joel Confer Toyota and Joel Confer BMW. This is the place to be for news and analysis around Penn State football, basketball, and all 29 other sports. Call the show at 814-272-9625. That's 814-272-9625. Now, here's your hosts of Blue and White Breakdown, Matt Bortner and Zach Seyko.
Penn State is 4-0 and 11 in the polls, or 12th if you look at the coaches poll. And I know sometimes I think the AP guys got it better than the coaches.
Well, I think they watch more football around.
That's true.
They watch more of other
more time
teams
on their hands.
Now, a lot of the coaches poll, it's not really the coaches making the votes. Anyways, it's they got somebody to make them coaches votes for them. So
James Franklin does have one of those votes.
Yes, he does.
Just FYI, hopefully he has Penn State number one each time. It's Blue and White Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio, sponsored by Joel Confer Toyota and BMW and Joel Confer Quality Pre-Owned. And remember, I will reiterate this. We did lead off the hour with our word of the day. It is Bucks, B-U-C-K. Bucks. Go to foreverstatecollege.com right now and input that word for a chance at $100 today and for the chance at the grand prize of $2,500.
What if I put Milwaukee as the word of the day? Will that work?
I think you'd get an error and you'd probably get banned from our website because that is not the right word.
Good news is I'm already banned.
It is Bucks. You have to work really hard to get that. B-U-C-K-S, Bucks at foreverstatecollege.com. And we're taking your calls, as always, during this show, 272-9625. That is 272-9625. You put the 814 in front of it. We are talking Penn State football, Penn State sports. There's 31 of them here in Happy Valley. We'll go in depth about some of the other fall teams that are in action, women's volleyball, soccer, field hockey, just to name a few. We are scouting Northwestern. The Wildcats come to town for a 3:30 kickoff on Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Alcohol sales will actually be permitted this time, so
is that
it's not a tease anymore.
For this game now?
Yes, I think so. They board passed it.
Well, I know the board passed it, but when they passed it, they said at a later date to be named. I'm not sure if they named the date yet.
All right, then I'll rescind that report. Well, we'll
you don't
see.
want. You might have just drove the market up on prices to get a ticket for the game this weekend.
I'm affecting the inflation, self-made inflation. But let's begin the show by recapping Penn State versus Central Michigan. Again, 272-9625. That is 272-9625. With the 814 in front of it if you want to get in on the conversation today with myself, Zach Seyko, and Matt Bortner. Penn State's 4-0. Yep. The offense has now put together multiple games where they have 30-plus points. And the game was a win when you look at it, but the 28-point spread, and they didn't really dominate Central Michigan. It was just an underwhelming performance, but when you look at the stat sheet, not necessarily. They had 4 takeaways, 2 interceptions, and 2 fumble recoveries. Now, granted, one of them was a muffed punt, and Penn State was kind of fortunate from there, but it just felt like Central Michigan was able to move the ball fairly easily, and receivers for Penn State weren't really breaking away. And now Sean Clifford, 23 of 35, 4 touchdowns, 3 of them through the air, and 1 on the ground. No turnovers again.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State, and you take away, how about this? You look at this, they missed 2 field goals. They had a blocked PAT and a failed 2-point conversion. You add all those points together, and that's another 9 points that you can give Penn State. So realistically, they could have won this game 42-14. I guess would that have made people feel a little bit better if that was the score? I mean, this is still a 3-score deficit for Central Michigan.
So I think you take it a couple ways. First, I think when they went up 14-0, it appeared to me, I don't know if this is the case, I don't know the minds of those guys, but it appeared to me that they let off the gas pedal after they got up 14-0.
Well, whether or not it seemed that way, in reality you did. When you allow Central Michigan to come back when you're up by 2 touchdowns and to tie it, and that was, I think, so Penn State had no problem throwing the first punch. But then it's when Central Michigan punched back. They expected them to roll over. They're like, ooh, Central Michigan's actually fighting back even though they're down by 2 scores, and I think that was surprising to them.
Yes, and when you lay off the gas pedal or you expect your opponent to lay over, it's tough. It's tough to get back on track and stay completely focused. Now, in the second half, score-wise, they dominated that second half as well. In games like this, I'm not necessarily looking at like, okay, are we going to beat this team by whatever the spread is, because there's a lot of factors sometimes in those types of games. But what, I guess from a Penn State perspective, if you're a Penn State fan, what would upset me the most was things that Penn State has improved upon a lot this year. I think in some instances took a step back in that game, and a lot of that had to do with the offensive line play. Now, I think running the ball,
well, one sack allowed, and Drew Aller, it was the only sack that was allowed was when Drew Aller was in the game late in the fourth quarter.
But that's not the case in terms of the plays that were affected by the quarterback getting hit, the plays that were affected that Sean Clifford had to throw off his back foot, plays where he had to scramble out on just on those pass plays. There was a couple missed blitz pickups. That, to me, was the most worrisome from that game. Alu Fashanu he struggled for the first time this year, and that's going to happen from time to time for an individual player. But I just think in terms of it being a complete game against a MAC foe where most of your starters played the whole game, it just didn't seem like that for me. I think especially, too, where you look at defensively, up the seam in their passing game seemed to be a bit of a struggle for Penn State. Penn State locked it down on the outside, throwing against Kalen King and Joey Porter, just as your main guys, is going to be a tough task for anybody this year. If you throw Johnny Dixon in there, Marquise Wilson, and Daquan Hardy, it's a formidable
DBU
group.
Is what you're telling me.
I don't know if that was more on the safeties or the linebackers up the seams that it was an issue, but also the other thing, and I think you're expecting it a bit this year, and it was the most successful that Auburn had in their game as well. So you sort of take this as a trade-off, but the pressure sometimes they're overrunning these guys, and it leads to open guys out of the backfield. Now, you'll take it in terms of creating chaos and sometimes taking the turnovers, and it's sort of, for aggressive defense, that happens, but I think that is one of the things that needs to be cleaned up as well. In the run game, it looked like there were some over-pursuing and cutback lanes for running backs. Now, it sounds like I'm just totally upset with Penn State in this game. The thing is, you get the win, you get the job done. You don't allow them to score any points in the second half. But I would have liked it to be a cleaner game for Penn State.
Yeah, it wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. You had Kaytron Allen go over 100 yards by himself. That is the third week in a row that Penn State has had a 100
I thought the run
rusher.
blocking was really well. They even for Nick Singleton, he's got to learn at some points to. There's some cutback lanes that we saw Kaytron Allen hit in this
the middle.
game. Yeah,
It feels like Singleton only knows how to go to the outside. He doesn't know how to go back inside.
Yeah, and I don't know, and maybe he doesn't not know how to do that. It's just not trusting himself yet to do that.
Figure of speech. He understands the game way better than I would need to put my head in the books.
He's never really had to do that in his career.
No, not at all. And the fact that as a freshman he's able to do what he's even doing is impeccable.
But I think you put that 1-2 punch of Allen and Singleton and even Lee, who wasn't suited up for this game, and even Devin Ford, who's been a nice addition to playing well, especially in the pass game. If Singleton, he can bust him up the middle too. That's a way that you can really complete your game. I think those lanes are there for the running backs right now. Again, the competition and maybe Auburn, you weren't expecting them to dominate in the run game like they did. But to me, I'm just sort of at this point where it's like, I don't know if we're going to learn so much this week again. And in terms of, I don't really know. I feel more confident than I was at the beginning of the year, but do we really know what Penn State team that totally is here until they play Michigan? And I don't know.
I just think
I think we knew they were going to compete with Michigan and Ohio State this year, but do we know? I don't know.
I totally get what you're saying. People just need to be aware. I mean, how about Georgia? Is Georgia not the number one team in the country because they only beat Penn State by 17?
There's a lot of schools that struggled this week. I mean, Michigan, I think Maryland's better than what they had been given credit for, and maybe Michigan was blown up a little more than they should have been, but Michigan struggled with Maryland. USC was taken to the wire against Oregon State. In college football, you have those days.
Here's my assessment of college football and pro football as well in general. When you have two teams coming into the game, you have whether these guys say it's not a matter of getting up for a game or going into it. Yes, that's a factor, especially with emotional. These guys are mature for their age, but they're not at their highest state of maturity, if that makes sense. So let's go back to that. So Penn State and Auburn are coming into a game, right? Penn State sees Auburn as this good of an opponent, right? Mm-hmm. I'm doing a little bit of a bar with my hand, like what level they perceive them to be. And if Penn State is going in thinking that Auburn is at this level and they're not, then you're going to steamroll them. It's the same thing. So Central Michigan's doing the same thing. Well, now Penn State is a top 10 team, so we have to treat them like a top 10 team. And Penn State's coming in. Central Michigan is a good quality MAC opponent, but there's still a MAC opponent. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously other factors coming into this after the game. But the Nittany Lions looked at Central Michigan as a lackluster opponent. Central Michigan looked at this as Penn State's a top 10 team. We got to put a top 10 game plan together. We got to put a top 10 effort together.
And I will get some of those plays you talk about, the missed assignments or overrunning. You go back and look, there was some good play development from Jim McElwain in that offense. They called a very good game.
So when you see results like this, part of it is because Central Michigan is better than Penn State, I think, gave them credit for, or at least they performed better that day. And Penn State came, and also when you're facing teams like Ohio, like Central Michigan, you are putting vanilla game plans together. You are not using your best plays for these kinds of games. I think they'll even dial it back against Northwestern. They know what they're not going into the meetings and saying, well, we're a 28-point spread, we don't need to try, but they're also looking at it and say, hey, we got to play the long game. Michigan's coming up in 2 weeks. How much do we want to show them against a team we believe we can handle and win convincingly against? They don't have it at, we got to win by 28, but to them, if they win by 2 touchdowns or more, that is a convincing victory for them in a Big Ten type of game for Northwestern, just as an example.
Yeah. Well, and I think you'll see more than you did last week because it's the first Big Ten home game. Basically, it's your first stretch of Big Ten games.
I don't know how much more.
But I think, though, too, with the bye week coming up, you want to...
Exactly.
You want to be running on all cylinders as well, though. You want to be going into that bye week feeling like I think you accomplished something, not having another game like Central Michigan where you're like, we got it done.
What did they show against Purdue? I thought Purdue was a very vanilla game plan. It was basic offensive concepts. It was very basic defense. It looked very reminiscent of what Brent Pry showed. You saw a couple blitzes when Penn State
in the game.
When Penn State was sweating a little bit, thinking like, man, we can't allow Purdue to get back into this. They saved all of that for Auburn, and I'm glad they used it against Auburn, but I think because Auburn is real, again, they set that bar for Auburn. This is an SEC team. They're still really competitive, and frankly, Auburn's just not that good this year.
I think too, you look at the first game of the season too. There's other thing that go into the first game of the season. It is first, you're playing competition in in a game-like scenario for the first time with a lot of freshmen, a lot of young guys that have never seen that. So to a point, too, maybe you don't know what you can execute at that point as well. So I think
there's that.
A first game of the season, if Purdue were here to show up this week, I think you would see a completely different game plan than you saw against Purdue in week 1.
It would, but that's Penn State has to be very. Remember, think back to the whiteout game in 2017. It was when they welcomed in Michigan, and you for the first time you saw a completely different wrinkle where Saquon Barkley shifted over to quarterback and took a direct snap and faked it to Trace McSorley on an option read. Now, how cool was that? But they strategically saved that for Michigan.
And I can even remember when. I forget what year against Ohio State where they used Tommy Stevens a lot in terms of bringing him in motion and those types of things. So, yes, no, I understand what you're saying. But I think at some point, too, there's just when you get into a season in terms of development, you start feeling more comfortable in your offense, too, that you can start to do these things. But, yes, your biggest tricks, your biggest wrinkles.
Why would you use them against Ohio?
Correct. Absolutely correct.
And I'm going in with the same mentality. Northwestern, despite being a Big Ten opponent, why would you use your best plays that you know you are going to need against Michigan, Minnesota, and Ohio State? You have the luxury of being able to save them and play. Basically, you can get away with playing a basic game plan and still winning. A win to them, if they win by 3 points against Northwestern, it is still a win.
Correct.
At the end of the day, that's... I know we're already overlooking the Central Michigan game, but
fan fodder. We can get all worried about it, but for them internally, okay, maybe they're
still dancing in the locker room whether they win by 1 or 100.
Yeah,
SF Austin.
But ideally, again, getting into Northwestern, this should be a game that Penn State should be able to dominate.
Well, they're 25.5-point favorites going into that one. We will continue our discussion about Penn State Central Michigan and why it was a lackluster game, but still they did a lot of things right. This is Blue and White Breakdown, sponsored by Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW and Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap. Shop Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW 24/7 at joelcomfort.com. The play of the game is on the way next here on State College's ESPN Radio.
Hi, this is Corey Carver from Joel Comfort Toyota and State College. At a time when new car inventory is scarce, why not look at a Toyota certified vehicle with Joel Comfort Toyota? All certified Toyotas come with a 7-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, plus a 12-month, 12,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty, and a 7-year, 100,000-mile roadside assistance program. Also, there are special interest rates as low as 2.99 for up to 60 months to qualified buyers. See our complete inventory at joelcomfort.com, and remember, good things happen in our community when you buy local.
Making Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs.
Building through the draft is usually a key part of any NFL team's success. The New England Patriots roster in the 2016-2017 season was comprised of 55% of players that the Patriots drafted. 15 of those players were drafted in rounds 4 through 7, including Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Rob Ninkovich. The Patriots went on to win the Super Bowl that season 34-28 over the Atlanta Falcons.
Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
In football, getting the chance to have all your top picks on your team is a fantasy. In business, the right conversations can make it a reality. Because when you post a job for free, LinkedIn Jobs taps into a network of over 810 million professionals to find the right people for your role. LinkedIn Jobs helps you narrow down to the most qualified candidates so you can start hiring the right people. Go to linkedin.com/sports to post your job for free. That's linkedin.com/sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Expect a slugfest on Monday night. I'm Joe Giglio here to help you beat the books with BetQL. Cooper Rush and Dallas look to hand unbeaten New York its first loss of the season in primetime tonight. Primetime unders are 7-2 so far this season, and the BetQL model is targeting some running back props to go under. Saquon Barkley under 77.5 rushing yards, and Ezekiel Elliott under 14.5 carries are both 5-star best bets. I'm Joe Giglio, bet smarter to beat the books. Download the BetQL app today.
Is there a calculator that can't compute in your kitchen drawer? Recycle it at Staples. A shredder that won't shred under your bed? Or a collection of cables cluttering up your closet? Recycle them now at Staples. With Staples Free Tech Takeback, we'll recycle your old tech free. Plus, rewards members get $5 back in rewards. So if you have modems, mice, and mobile phones making a mess of your home, recycle them now at Staples. Limit 1 reward per month. Redeemable in-store only. Exclusions apply. Visit staples.com/recycling for details.
Plan your midweek getaway today and find lodging at happyvalley.com. Explore dining destinations, interesting attractions, historic sites, sports, shopping and boutiques, caves, and the Central PA Tasting Trail. Our hotels, inns, and bed and breakfasts are ready for your visit. Plus, rates and wait times are less during the week. Your adventures can also include hiking trails, biking, geocaching, and walking driving tours too. Look for insider information at dispatch.happyvalley.com. We're in the center of it all. Plan your adventures today at happyvalley.com.
Kevin Harlan here from Monday Night Football on Westwood One. Coming up, an NFC East battle between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. Giant quarterback Daniel Jones and his team off to a 2-0 start this season, while the 1-1 Cowboys grabbed a big win last week with quarterback Cooper Rush taking over the offense. Kurt Warner and I'll have all the action for you on Monday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at westwoodonesports.com.
I had a nighttime routine for my frequent heartburn. I would drink milk, I would sleep upright with more pillows, but that painful burning stayed. So I made Prilosec OTC part of my morning routine. With just 1 pill in the morning, Prilosec OTC prevents excess acid production, blocking heartburn day and night. Now I have a new nighttime routine. I call it sleeping.
1 pill, 24 hours, 0 heartburn. With Prilosec OTC. It's possible while taking Prilosec OTC. Use as directed for 14 days to treat frequent heartburn, not for immediate relief.
O'Reilly. See the road ahead more clearly with Sylvania Bulbs and O'Reilly Auto Parts. Right now, purchase select Sylvania Bulbs and get a $15 gift card after mail-in rebate, plus receive double O-Rewards points. Replace your bulbs today and see better tonight. Let the professional parts people help you find the bulbs you need. Visit O'Reilly Auto Parts or O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome back to Blue and White Breakdown on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. Time for the guys to nominate the player of the game.
Wing left is Johnson. Kaytron Allen back in the game at running back. 2nd and 9, Central Michigan 14. It's Allen to his left to the 10. Kaytron 5. Touchdown, Penn State. The Nittany Lions retake the lead on the 3rd touchdown of the season for Kaytron Allen.
Kaytron Allen with 12 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, averaging about 8 per rush in the game. He becomes, his first 100-plus yard rushing game of his career. Penn State is the only FBS school with 2 freshman running backs who have rushed for 100 yards in a game this season. He is yet what I really like about him, and I think part of it too is because him and Singleton and even the other running backs Penn State has, they complement each other so well. They have different traits, but what I like about Allen is he's a guy that's always moving forward. No negative yard rushes yet in his Penn State career, but he's got some. He can make people miss too. I think that's an underrated part of his game. And I do want to make a correction. He had 13 carries, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. His longest run of the day was 37 yards. Are we finished now with the Nicholas Singleton, Saquon Barkley comparisons? Because I'm glad that was a week-long thing. What do you mean by that?
Well, there were a lot of people that said that Saquon Barkley and Nicholas Singleton Nicholas Singleton is the next Saquon Barkley if he's not that already. And I said they are 2 very different running backs.
Yeah,
and it's just it.
He's got. So I'll say this: it appears to me that he has traits like Saquon in terms of that not many people possess some of the traits that Nicholas Singleton has in terms of that elite speed and being able to bounce it out and just completely make a guy miss that has the angle on you. But yeah, Saquon, in terms
we
of...
also saw a full resume. It's not to say that Singleton can't do that at some point, but to say because
the juke ability that Saquon had to make people miss.
But he can also run through you, too. And Singleton, to this point, I don't think Singleton has actually broken a tackle yet, if I'm being honest. He can make you miss, but he doesn't have any yards after contact. He's been brought down fairly easily when he's met by a defender.
And I thought if there was one flaw in Saquon's game at Penn State, it was sometimes not using his power enough. He had the ability to run you over whenever he needed to, but sometimes I think that was something he needed to do more often.
Oh, and the same thing with Singleton here, being content with 3 or 4 yards.
Yeah.
That's just the fact of the matter. And now he's experienced that in the NFL more often because Saquon's very good at ripping off 40-yard runs.
Yeah.
Like, that's very tough to do. Getting 10-plus is something to
Those guys are fast.
is something to behold in the NFL. But I think Singleton, and he will get better at this because he's going to look back at the tape. I think of the fourth quarter run where they handed it off and he could have easily had a touchdown had he been able to sidestep the defender. Or honestly, just jump over them. Not do a full-on hurdle. These guys are going at your ankles. He literally has to step maybe a foot off the ground.
Doesn't have to be the Bretton Strange attempt that we saw in the game.
It doesn't have to be your highest vertical, but my goodness, it feels like for you as a speed back, these guys are going to try to chop your ankles like
just
that.
To slow you down any bit.
They're not tackling you up high. They're going after you low, and I feel like a guy for Singleton who is as nimble as he is, you want to take down a Derrick Henry, for example, by the legs. You want to try to take him out from underneath, not try to beat him up high. And that's why I'm surprised that Singleton goes down when it is an ankle tackle or a shoestring tackle. I figured he'd be able to just step right out of that.
Well, and it's funny that it may sound like we're going on a rant on the running backs, but like that's how good these two are, that we're nitpicking as true freshmen things that these guys can work on. So those two by far are some of the least of the worries for Penn State. And to be honest, I don't know if there's any real like glaring issues right now on this Penn State team. It's just in some areas I don't think I think there's enough position groups that they're not dominant or consistent enough. Is that what will hold Penn State back if they're trying to compete with the Marylands, or not the Marylands? Well, they will have to play Maryland this year, but the Michigans and the Ohio States this year.
This is Blue and White Breakdown, sponsored by Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW and Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap, your local Toyota dealer for over 41 years, located at 120 East Clinton Avenue behind the Waffle Shop on North Atherton in State College. We're still taking your phone calls if you want to dial us up, 272-9625. That is 272-9625. You put the area code 814 in front of it. We've spoken plenty about the offense, the offensive line, some individual players. The defense we touched on a little bit in the fact of how good the secondary play is, how good the cornerbacks have been. The fact that they've gone to a prowler look with 7 defensive backs at points in time. My biggest concern with the defense, and again, maybe this was scheming, maybe they didn't, because I don't think they showed a lot, but they came with a lot of blitzes. Manny Diaz was sending the house a good amount of times, and Central Michigan picked it up. They would send 7 guys, and those 5 offensive linemen for Central Michigan picked it up, and they had some help from the running back. But do you buy or sell that is a concern, that maybe the blitz isn't getting home the way it should?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily that, too. I think
against a MAC team.
I mean, you saw in the Auburn game, too, you can start scheming against blitzes with those slip screens and knowing where you got to get the ball out precisely to. Now, Auburn, I thought, went away from that too much in the game 2 weeks ago. And I also think they chose the wrong quarterback to start the game in terms of how Ashford can run the ball.
They did everything wrong.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I don't think it's a huge concern because, again, I think that's what blitzing teams also at some points say is it's not always getting to the quarterback. It's making the quarterback throw the ball earlier than he wants to. Now, it's a bonus when you get to the QB, but But again, I thought Central Michigan did a pretty good job of getting the ball off pretty quickly when Penn State sent the blitz.
That and guys were getting open. Now, when I initially was watching it, and I said, man, Central Michigan wide receivers are getting too wide open away from these. That was poor officiating in that game. They called it one time. Offensive pass interference, and they did it in and a lot of blatant ones where guys would the tight ends would lower the shoulder and act as a blocker. They wouldn't just get in the way and continue their route. They would stop and lay a block. That is illegal. That is offensive pass interference, and they let them go all game doing it. I really hope we don't see a good team try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's it's the reason why that play became illegal, because offenses were exploiting it so well and getting receivers open. But I think if there's one thing to be most concerned about from that game, and it is the kicking unit, the field goal kicking unit. That is, we thought maybe in the Auburn game that it looked like Pinniger, so he hits that big-time field goal. It looks like maybe smooth sailing from here on out. I know you're going to have lapses from here and there, but that's the second missed extra point. That one was blocked. He misses a 38-yarder. Now Sahidak, that's from 55, especially at the college level. That is a very long field goal. But I
have more questions than answers.
It is more often than not a determining factor in a close game if that's the victory or not. So that is a big time concern for me for Penn State, is their field goal kicking.
Let's nominate our play of the game from Penn State versus Central Michigan, and then we are going to discuss more Penn State sports in depth with soccer, field hockey, women's volleyball, as we look at the fall sports that are also in action alongside Penn State football. It's Blue and White Breakdown. He's Matt Bortner. I'm Zach Seyko on State College's ESPN Radio.
With school back in session, motorists are reminded to be aware of school buses. Always remember to share the roads safely and watch for the yellow or red flashing lights that alert motorists that buses are preparing to or have stopped to pick up kids. And when the bus's stop sign arm is extended, traffic in both directions must stop on undivided roadways.
This school bus safety message brought to you by Joel Comfort Toyota, BMW, and Collision Center, 120 East Clinton Avenue in State College.
Hurry into the Energy Savings Event at Lowe's. Save energy and save money on select major appliances, including Whirlpool energy efficient appliances. You can also save with the smart thermostat. Right now, select Google Nest Learning thermostats are $60 off. Plus, find other great energy saving items throughout the store and check your eligibility for rebates in your area to save even more. Don't miss the Energy Savings Event at Lowe's. Selection varies by location. Exclusions apply. Visit Lowe's.com for details. Valid through 9/28.
Chest up, engage your core, dig
At Misty's gym, boot camp gets pretty close to the real thing. She wants to spot a personal trainer with a military background.
I can cover this week's boot camp, but we need someone staff. Isn't your cousin a Marine?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use Closet Box instead? Closet Box is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. Closet Box's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. Closet Box's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. Closet Box has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
Thanks for the coffee. No problem. With my cash rewards card from Navy Federal Credit Union, I get up to 1.75% cash back. Isn't it 1.5%? Now it's up to 1.75%. That's bigger and better. I bought these scones with my cash back. I love scones! Me too! Scones for everyone!
When you sign up for direct deposit, you can earn up to 1.75% cash back with the Cash Rewards Card. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
When you download the Home Depot app, taking on big or small projects starts with a tap. It's your pocket-sized toolbox for getting more done. Image search helps you find what you need with a snap. Store mode pinpoints exactly where to go to get what you want while you're at our store. Or just tap to arrange for easy curbside pickup, all from the palm of your hand. It's the app that's made for doing. The Home Depot app. How doers get more done.
It's time for the play of the game on Blue and White Breakdown.
Long and deep far side, reaches out and juggles, got it, touchdown, Penn State!
Quick shot over the middle, caught by Carrier and ripped away by King. King picks up the fumble at the 22-yard line. Penn State's got the football. King never gave up on it. He made the catch. He ripped it out. He made the recovery.
The trifecta there.
Oh, yeah. Kaylen King, I think PFF had graded him as the top corner this past week.
Highest defender.
Oh, highest defender. Even better. He was in, I don't even know the number, but he was on a bunch of pass breakups. And then that play was, it was something spectacular. He just got it out before the defender's knee got to the ground. So the duo,
was very close.
The duo of Kaylen King and Joey Porter Jr., they got to be one of the top duos in college football this year when it comes to your 1 and 2 cornerbacks.
And that's the thing. He splits time over there with Johnny Dixon.
Yeah.
Like Johnny Dixon, you really don't lose much of a step when either of them are on the field.
Yeah, and we've even seen quite a bit of Marquise Wilson as well. It's funny. The one thing if you are picking on Johnny Dixon, it's going up and throwing a jump ball. Well, he came down. Johnny Dixon came down with one of them this week. That was a heck of a play by Johnny.
Yeah, that could have been play of the game as well. But I think Kaylen King's is a little more important because Central Michigan was still threatening.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was, I think, about 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter and right on the heels of the red zone. So to make that play, because I'm like, man, Central Michigan's driving. They just will not go away. And Kaylen King said, all right, enough of that.
I thought the true punch in the gut for Central Michigan was going to be when they got to the goal line, got the penalty, then got it back to 4th and goal, and then didn't convert there and get any points. But seriously, give Central Michigan, though, a lot of credit for that was a team that never gave up all day.
This is Blue and White Breakdown. He's Matt Bortner. I'm Zach Seyko. We are sponsored by Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW and Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap. Rent a Toyota at Joel Comfort Toyota. Rent a car 120 East Clinton Avenue in State College. Fall sports are the fall season is now here, but the fall sports season has been going on for quite some time. And let's look at the sister and brother sports to Penn State football. Number 12 women's volleyball suffered its first loss of the season. It was against Michigan in straight sets, so I guess that Wolverines team is a little better than advertised, but this was a team that started out 12-1. I think they were ranked as high as 6th. They're now currently number 12, but they are 1-1 in conference, and I think they had a nice West Coast trip, but I think that, when it comes to Big Ten women's volleyball, Nebraska... their
next opponent, they head to number 8 Wisconsin. You're right. It's a murderer's row.
Mm-hmm. You really don't get a break. And that's the same thing with men's hockey, for example. Big Ten men's hockey, everybody outside of Michigan State, everybody's really good and will give it your all. So I think we're going to see a little bit of regression, unfortunately, for this squad. But I like that they. Look how we're talking.
But
First loss of the season.
Regression could also mean just regression in terms of their record. Because of the quality opponents, it might be something that leads them to a lot more experience and better play in the postseason, because they look like a team that is definitely going to be vying for a postseason spot and competing in the Big Ten.
I would say Big Ten women's volleyball is the SEC of when it comes to that. But they do play Wisconsin Friday night and Michigan State on Sunday. Penn State men's soccer, they tied with number 9 Maryland, which is still very good, and especially a men's soccer team that fell out of the top 25, even though they are a top 25 team. And then they upset Akron 1-0 yesterday.
Yeah, that's 2 ranked opponents, and not having a loss in the same week is, I think, starting to show that Penn State's regrouped a little bit from a little bit of a fumbling start, and maybe they're getting back on track.
For women's soccer, 17th in the country, they are 7-1-2. They are 2-0-1 in conference. They defeated number 4 Rutgers 2-0, shut them out, and then yesterday they beat Illinois 5-0.
Yeah. Again, it sounds like a broken record when we're talking about the other fall sports.
Both soccers are really good,
and it's for a while now. It's fall sports has been a area where Penn State has really they've shown some of their dominance in those sports.
When people say Penn State is a football school, they mean European football. But kudos to both the men's and women's soccer teams. They are off to a great start, and they're both favorites to win the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So women's soccer, I think, has a slightly tougher. I mean, look at Rutgers, number 4, for example. But men's soccer was the preseason favorite, and women's soccer was either the favorite or definitely up there, and they're showing. Penn State field hockey, 8-1 on the season, 3-0 in conference. They are number 5 in the country. We talked about their impressive victory from last week. They're continuing to do that. They beat Michigan State and Ohio State consecutively, 4-0 and 2-0, their respective scores.
And a top 5 matchup coming for Charmaret Curtis's team at number 2 Northwestern on Friday, and then Indiana, they play unranked at Indiana on Sunday. But that Northwestern matchup, I think, is one of those games where you'll look at and just either way it goes, see if these two teams are going to be competitors for an NCAA tournament championship this year, because Penn State, you got to remember, they were one of the top teams entering the tournament last year. So this should be an exciting matchup.
And we'll finish with Penn State women's hockey. They upset the number 2 team in the country, Wisconsin. Wisconsin was able to bounce back and split the series 1-1, but you pick up a top 5 win over a very
good start the season.
A very good Wisconsin team, and they are now, I think, 11th in the polls.
Yeah, and women's hockey as well. Now it's not, they don't play in the Big Ten, but Penn State, they'll have their opportunity to make some moves this year in terms of maybe having their best season again as a program.
This is Blue and White Breakdown, sponsored by Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW and Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned. The Scouting Report is next. We look at the Wildcats of Northwestern here on State College's ESPN Radio.
Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned in Pleasant Gap is your one-stop shop automotive stop for the Center Region's best in quality pre-owned vehicles. Best because they're handpicked by Joel and Sonny while using their over 100 years of automotive experience in doing so. Best because they're serviced, reconditioned, and priced to sell. Visit Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned today, 475 East College Avenue in Pleasant Gap. Call 814-954-5237 or go online to joelcomfortqualitypreowned.com.
Plan your midweek getaway today and find lodging at happyvalley.com. Explore dining destinations, interesting attractions, historic sites, sports, shopping and boutiques, caves, and the Central PA Tasting Trail. Our hotels, inns, and bed and breakfasts are ready for your visit. Plus, rates and wait times are less during the week. Your adventures can also include hiking trails, biking, geocaching, and walking driving tours too. Look for insider information at dispatch.happyvalley.com. We're in the center of it all. Plan your adventures today at happyvalley.com.
You'd never knowingly feed your dog sawdust, but it's one of the most common fillers found in dog food today. Even the ones labeled healthy can contain powdered cellulose, otherwise known as wood pulp.
I'm veterinarian Dr. Marty Goldstein. Your dog needs a biologically appropriate diet. That's why I developed Nature's Blend, a freeze-dried raw food, premium cuts of meat, omega-3 rich seeds, and superfood veggies and fruit.
This is my dog Cleo. She's a 10-year-old Chihuahua. Before we started Dr. Marty's food, she was really not spunky, a lot of digestion problems. problems, joint pain.
Nature's Blend is made in North America and is pantry safe.
Now she acts like a little puppy. She's running around.
For a limited time, save 54% off Nature's Blend and receive a free pack of premium dog treats. Go to drmartypets.com/playful or text playful to 511-511.
I guarantee it with a 100% 90-day return of your purchase price.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to one additional text opt to opt out.
Hey, it's Penn State men's basketball head coach Micah Shrewsbury, and you're listening to Blue and White Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio.
And it won't be too long before Micah Shrewsbury's squad takes to the court.
Can't wait. I just see
early November.
See Jaylen Brown was at the Penn State campus this past weekend.
I feel bad for him, though. Coach is out for the season.
Yeah.
It's not an NBA show, but I can imagine that Jaylen Brown felt like he had a little free time.
Yeah.
And don't talk to Micah. Stay here. I do not want outside influence trying to say, hey, Micah, since Ime Udoka might not be back in Boston, we'd really like you here as our head coach. No. Just stay away.
Yeah.
But it is cool to see him stay connected with former Celtics players that he's coached. I'm
sure it's great for the
it's good for
players and the players to see and talk to as well.
It's Blue and White Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio, sponsored by Joel Comfort Toyota and BMW and Joel Comfort Quality Pre-Owned. He's Matt Bortner. I'm Zach Seyko. Our scouting report, this time it is Northwestern, 1-3 overall, 1-0 in conference. If the season ended today, they would actually be the Big Ten West representative in the Big Ten championship.
It's crazy to think that you lose 3 straight this early in the season, and you're like, oh no, and actually they're tied for first.
Yeah. Northwestern, its lone win came against Nebraska in Ireland to open up the season in week 0, and then they actually haven't been on a true road game since. So this is the first road game for the Wildcats. Head coach is still Pat Fitzgerald, a very motivational kind of figure. He's limited. He's constrained by what Northwestern invests into its football program, but he's always going to have job security.
I would say that's sort of, they actually invest a lot into the program. It's just still like, do I want to go to Northwestern? Because they built those beautiful facilities out there. They've actually put a lot of money in the program. It's just...
it's kind of the same thing with Stanford. Stanford, since Andrew Luck hasn't really been competitive, but it's that same thing. Only so many people can double up on being a 4.0 student and playing football the way they do competitively.
Correct.
I will say that much. Northwestern is a prestigious academic institution.
Yep.
So you're only going to, and say, why is Stanford not in it every single year? Kind of for Vanderbilt, another example. Very similar reasons, but in relative terms, Northwestern compared to schools in the SEC, other schools in the Big Ten, do not have that same kind of support that you would, for example. But Northwestern does, with the means, it does do well enough. We saw them, of course, compete for a Big Ten title in the COVID season in 2020. But really, since that, they've been the bottom feeders of the Big Ten, and they are truly bottom feeders this year. And when I say they are a bad team, they are a bad team. Aside from the loss last week to Miami of Ohio at home, 17-14, I don't think it gets any worse than losing to an FCS, winless FCS team in Southern Illinois. It's not like, they're competing for a national championship and they really got up that day. No, you lost to an 0-2 Southern Illinois football team.
Yeah,
at home.
It just doesn't get worse than that when you're a Power 5 school.
Yeah. The Michigan loss to App State many years ago when they were top 5, it's very similar. You should not lose, even though Northwestern is in top 5, you should not lose to an FCS school on your home field.
Yeah, that's sort of surprising, just the way that Fitzgerald runs his program. You sort of think he's a guy where, like, those type of teams aren't the ones that it's losing to teams you're not supposed to.
But maybe that's how bad they are.
Yeah,
that just might be it. I think they got up for Northwestern. They had nothing to lose in Ireland, and it just all worked out. And we kind of figured out that Nebraska really just isn't that good. Yeah. So again, setting that bar. Northwestern came in. Everyone said Nebraska was going to be better. They're in fact much worse, and Northwestern played over the level of competition they were expecting. They are going to see a number 11 Penn State team, so how much they are able to treat them like so it will be determined, because Ryan Helinski doesn't really offer all too much at quarterback. This is
he throws the ball a lot.
He does. But for 1 or 2 yards, because he is 4th in the country in completions per game. So, he's efficient, but not really for the right reasons. You can check down. Who I am concerned the most, and I'm starring on my depth chart or my notes, is running back Evan Hall. Hall is a very good running back because he can do it both ways. He can run. He's very effective in the receiving game. I think he had over 200 yards against Duke, and that was a Duke game they actually should have won as well. They lost it on one of the final plays of the game. Hall also, I can't remember if it was, I think it was Evan Hall. He was getting ready to score the touchdown, and he fumbled it right before the goal line, which would have at least set them up to tie the game. And Duke recovered it, and they went on to lose that game 31-23 to the Blue Devils. And I think that's just set them back. That game, losing that game the way they did, has set them back against Southern Illinois. And this is how emotional college football is, because I think in the pros, you might let it linger. But when it's 18 to 22-year-olds, like, that's going to weigh on your mind, especially when a star player, like the face of your team, is the one committing that play.
Yeah, Evan Hall actually leads the nation, averaging 181 all-purpose yards per game, 92 rushing, and 77 receiving. So that's the type of player that he is. He is, by any means, he is a dynamic player. And I think especially with the way we've seen Penn State with those screens have been some of the most successful against the Penn State defense so far. That is a worry for me, and I think something they need to key on. Maybe you will see the blitz not come as heavy this week. And they got a good two-back system with Cam Porter as well. He's a solid back with over 150. Their offensive line is very good, actually.
Offensive line returned 4 starters this year.
What's his name is first-round projected draft pick. I'm blanking on...
it is slipping my mind as well.
But you'll see some good offensive line play from Northwestern. It's just turning the ball over is the key stat for me. Penn State is 4th in the turnover margin in the nation at +8. Northwestern is -5 in the turnover margin, which is tied for 121st in the NCAA. 7 of 10 of Northwestern's turnovers come off fumbles, and Penn State has recovered 5 of them so far. So the turnover game, to me, is what it really interests me. Northwestern's defense really doesn't turn you over, and Penn State has done a really great job of keeping the ball in their hands. And so I just think that seems like a recipe for disaster for Northwestern this week.
And the player you and I are thinking of is Peter Scaronski,
yes,
the junior left tackle. So that will be a battle to keep an eye on there. Adisa Isaac or Denai Dennis Sutton, for example. I mean, Vanover rushing from that blind side of Ryan Helinski. But he's not a quarterback that can... That's why it was so surprising when Nebraska lost that game. They made Helinski look like a Heisman quarterback.
Yeah.
And that really takes a lot of work to do just that. I think Penn State's defense will benefit them in this game. I don't know how much I see Northwestern, and part of that turnover margin, they turn the ball over at the worst possible times. Like I said, inside the red zone, right at the freaking goal line against Duke, for example. I think that Penn State will win this game handedly. They now have the ground game to control it. You don't have to worry about the bubble screens and giving it back to Northwestern and letting them hang around in this kind of game. You can have the ground game to basically just solidify what you want to do. When you go up, you can now maintain the lead. And I feel like you didn't have that at all last year, and because you didn't.
Yeah, I do think that because of Pat Fitzgerald and who he is and what type of coach he is, they're going to come out playing some desperate football. I would expect some trick plays in this game.
Yeah, why not? What do you have to lose? Because everyone's going to project you at this point to finish last in the Big Ten.
And plus, you're at a point where you're still competing for believe it or not, you're in position.
Yeah, they're
where
1-0.
You're 1-0 in Big Ten play, and you've still got something to play for. So I think it could start off, a little slow with Northwestern really wanting to play that ground game, but Penn State's just too explosive. I think they'll turn Northwestern over. I'm going to go Penn State 38 and Northwestern 13.
I don't know how many points Northwestern can score in this game. I think defensively, the biggest battle is going to be, can Penn State get pressure on Ryan Helinski and against this offensive line? They struggled to do that even with blitzing against Central Michigan, and I don't know how much they're going to show with Michigan on the horizon when this is a very winnable game 99 times out of 100. I'm going to go 31-10. It's very similar to these MAC games that we've seen. Yep. You're not going to get your 5-star game plan out. You're not going to do something and deviate from what you know has been working. You're not going to add any new wrinkles in, but you do have to be wary that Northwestern, backed into a corner, is going to put all of it out there on the field at this point.
Yeah, and
especially with a guy like Pat Fitzgerald leading them as a head coach.
Yeah, but if you're Penn State, I think it comes back to you want to go into your bye week with Michigan coming up after that, feeling your best self and that you're in position to just keep getting better as a team.
One final segment. It's across the conference, around the Big Ten. When we come back here on Blue and White Breakdown on State College's ESPN Radio.
With school back in session, motorists are reminded to be aware of school buses. Always remember to share the roads safely and watch for the yellow or red flashing lights that alert motorists that buses are preparing to or have stopped to pick up kids. And when the bus's stop sign arm is extended, traffic in both directions must stop on undivided roadways.
This school bus safety message brought to you by Joel Comfort Toyota, BMW, and Collision Center, 120 East Clinton Avenue in State College.
Anyone who has ever needed self-storage knows what a hassle it can be. You have to rent or borrow a truck and then find someone to help you move your stuff. And let's face it, moving furniture and heavy items without damaging them isn't easy. Renting the unit is worse. The hidden fees and admin costs are scarier than the dingy facilities you're leaving your stuff in. Why not use Closet Box instead? Closet Box is self-storage without leaving home. They'll pick up your belongings, store them securely, and bring any item back when you need it. The best part? Unlike traditional self-storage, you only pay for what you store. No paying for unused storage space. Closet Box's background check storage movers are licensed, bonded, and insured and will take care of all of the heavy lifting. Closet Box's local storage centers are temperature controlled and monitored 24/7. Closet Box has an A+ rating from the BBB. Call 877-233-5696 now for the season's best rates. Get $50 off first month storage using code RADIO50. That's 877-233-5696. 877-233-5696.
Sponsored by Audible. The best audio entertainment this fall is on Audible. It's the home of storytelling with audiobooks, exclusive originals, popular podcasts, and more. All in one app. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
This is Blue and White Breakdown on ESPN Radio 103.7 and 1450. It's now time to look across the conference and see where Penn State stands in the Big Ten. Across the Conference is sponsored by Happy Valley Adventure Bureau. You don't need to leave Happy Valley for a great getaway. Plan your staycation today. Visit the Happy Valley Adventure Bureau for day trip ideas.
And in under 60 seconds, we're going to give you the lowdown on the Big Ten. Ohio State destroyed Wisconsin 52-21. Michigan, a surprising performance against Maryland, or by Maryland, I should say. 34-27 was the final in that game.
They got a star running back in Blake Corum.
Went to my high school. I got to put that out there. Went to my high school.
30 rushes for 243 and 2 touchdowns.
Those lead the nation in most 20-plus yard carries with 8. And Minnesota looking better and better each week. They beat Michigan State 34-7 at Sparty.
Upset alert, because they're due for one every year. Look out for Michigan at Iowa this week. I know Iowa doesn't have much on the offensive side, but weird things happen at Kinnick.
Michigan is a 10-point favorite in that game. Purdue at Minnesota, Rutgers at Ohio State across the slate.
You can and bleed blue and white every Monday at 5 p.m. with Matt and Zach on ESPN Radio 1037 and 1450. Thanks for listening to Blue and White Breakdown, sponsored by Joel Confer Toyota and Joel Confer BMW.